fellow siblings of Imo State. It's a great honor to stand here before you today as one of your willing and humble servants. After over 53 years or so since we fought and secured our independence, the right to self-rule, I'm inclined to insist that we have failed abysmally in leadership. Do you know, siblings, that 53 years ago, South Korea and many other nations were at the same economic parity with Nigeria? Today, South Korea boasts of a large shipbuilding industry, airplanes, military hardware, and a plethora of industries that are at the very top of global comparative superiority. In the process, the nation earns billions of dollars in foreign revenue and a domestic industrial base that supports its teeming population with employment opportunities and wealth creation. Brazil is equally emerging as an economic power thanks to good leadership. In fact, Nigeria now looks up to Brazil for assistance as an advanced nation. Meanwhile, siblings, we are still struggling to ensure our most basic human needs like electricity, water, and healthcare. Again, I must insist or postulate that the ray of light we saw in the middle 70s and the early 80s has invariably dissipated, leaving us in what I consider the dark age of Nigeria. So, siblings, I must ask, where do we go wrong? Has invisible hands of fate thwarted our destiny for the worst, or are we culpable? Unfortunately, we know the answer. We know who have failed our state and our nation. While those in power who deny this present predicament, offer false and diversionary explanations, even claim progress, why are we still saddled with such avoidable crises in all our areas of life? Is it that we do not know progress, or we essentially love mediocrity and low quality of life? How could almost three generations of men and women attend college and university education and never had opportunities to have meaningful jobs and are now approaching the age of retirement? How could? Which society wastes her human resources and relegates her youth to a lifetime of poverty? For those who contend we are making progress, I sadly insist again that you do not know progress. Because progress is not only measured by magnificence of our state infrastructure alone, but also by the quality of life of our citizens. Again, let me say it clearly, siblings. Any leaders can build skyscrapers from one end of the state to another, but as long as the very human conditions prevailing persist, we will be living in real fantasy and absolute denial. And this is not a verdict on our present Imo State leadership, but the truth must be told, and the truth stretches back across decades of our political history. When leadership has failed, become self-serving, apathetic, perennial, siblings, it is dangerous. Traditionally, nations do stumble, but often recover in search of its golden history. But it seems to me that our leaders the past 16 years are of a special breed. The kind of breed that feels that change is needless, cumbersome, and the positions of power are vehicles of personal enrichment. They deal with issues with such hopeless disregard for the future, and they face surprise and anger when confronted with reality or truth. Siblings, I, Paul Amadi, am not willing to affirm the status quo. The fact that our leaders continue to be hounded by an angry and desperate population is eloquent evidence that their needs have not been met, their daily struggles not acknowledged. The fangs of poverty are deeply embedded in their psyche and physical appearances, and hopelessness alone has stirred the worst kinds of penchant for evil in our people simply because leadership has abdicated its role in transforming lives but shamelessly continues to perpetrate a false claim of progress. And one of the most unfortunate misadventures of the moment is that leadership is surrounded by an army of sycophants who are ready to brutalize any opposition and ironically against those they often seek votes from. Essentially, it's a leadership by fear and intimidation, and imposed leadership, despotic and vindictive in its operations. Our people have long waited for change. real change. Generations after generation, our leaders keep defaulting on this very demand. They treat change as if it's a forbidden human need. And God help me, I don't know if His Almighty at some point in our lives purged us of the spirit of milk of human kindness, as Shakespeare once put it, leaving us devoid of any iota of compassion or conscience. I've heard that some of our very own siblings resent leadership by their fellow siblings who studied overseas. Little do they ever reflect on our political history. They simply forget that those men who faced tremendous odds risked their lives to ensure we all enjoy these political privileges today. Those who made it possible for us all to be free as a nation, to determine our destiny, achieve our independence. Mbono Ojike, Dr. M.K. Mbadiwe, Chief Mbakwe, Obafemi Awolowo, and the most famous, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the founding fathers or pioneers of our nation, were all recipients of a foreign education. Great men that some of us today even adopt their names. Ojukwu, the protector of Igbos. These warriors made us what we are today, and it is sacrilegious that some individuals hold such narrow views of leadership and believe that they alone are worthy of it. We desecrate the legacies of our founding fathers if we suddenly trivialize and dismiss those who follow their footsteps. We simply cannot assume their names and titles, but abandon the ethical character, the honor and self-sacrifice that they lead by. While they say salvation comes from the north, I must insist, siblings, that given the degree of despair, suffering, death our people have experienced, it is irrelevant from where salvation comes from as long as it is salvation. We must be ready and willing to embrace salvation with open arms. Our people need salvation, and our leaders cannot eternally stand in its way. The idea of discriminating against your fellow sibling simply because of where he or she obtained education is ill-conceived, suspicious, and stifles the pool of human resources, the variety in brains and courage we desperately desire to rebuild our state. Lately, I've heard some of our siblings argue for a choice of one political party or the other, and I'm greatly concerned that we need more than honoring the dead in choosing which party and who leads us. The Ojukwu we all know would not expect us to sacrifice our future just because we wish to honor his name. He fought for our lives and future. Siblings, naivete in the face of leadership crisis, an epidemic of death and suffering is suicidal. Bags of rice, beans, camera cars, and keke should not motivate our citizens to vote for certain candidates. There's a whole lot more that is at stake than these quick fixes. Those who preach about what some candidates have given or should have given before consideration for electing positions in our communities risk creating an environment where material things become criteria for choice of leadership instead of real knowledge and real skill of governance. We must abandon this dangerous mindset if we are going to make any real progress in our practice of democracy. And I urge the media, our elite, and all concerned citizens to re-educate our people to end the dangerous emphasis on political trade by battle that continues to make it possible for every cow and goat to run for office simply because they can afford the money, but in the end they offer society nothing. For over 15 years now, since we returned to civilian rule and elective government, our society has placed priority on quick temporary compensations that never last, instead of seeking men and women who have the ideas, the vision, and the courage to lead. Ask not what any man or woman can give you momentarily, but demand that they guarantee your future and your children's future. This is as simple as your expectations. Anything more or less is corrupt, cheap gratification, and bribery. And we cannot perpetrate a system that is self-destructive. Those who promote and encourage this kind of greedy behavior are the real enemies of our society. And they are afraid that change could come and permanently eliminate their chances of continued self-enrichment at the very expense of millions of our citizens. While we should all be gracious and kind, We have seen lately that just being benevolent does not necessarily translate into good leadership. And I hope we've learned some great deal of lessons in making choices. Now we must invariably seek a new template for our state leadership. Those of us who seek positions of power must be committed to those democratic ideals that guarantee comprehensiveness of governance and not false promises, not provincialism. The social contract that existed between the leader and the masses at the beginning of time implied ostensibly certain expectations from both parties. The masses owed loyalty to the leader, and in return, the leader, by implication, promised a degree of protection. As society evolved, and as the idea of nations and constitutions emerged, the contract was inculcated in unique ways. The humankind framed the clause, the safety and well-being of the people, as the primary objective and mission of government. Then came the democratic process that even further formalizes this basic premise, evincing it of greater moral and social certitude. The masses now had greater reassurance that government belonged to them and worked for them. So as we take leadership positions, we must be cognizant of this precept, that we are employees of society, and we fundamentally operate at their whim. Their needs, their concerns, and overall happiness take precedence over personal aspirations. From the moment we seek and receive their support, we are bound an obligation that demands our sacrifice. I wish to hope that every leader in Imo State understands this call for sacrifice and service, and equally has a vision of greatness and progress for society before stepping forward to accept the masses' mandate. Essentially, for a leader to be successful, he or she must have sufficiently done his or her homework as it relates to the needs of society. There is no amount of knowledge of tradition and friendship with the most notable political and social personalities in society that suffice leadership. You must be well informed on democratic governance and quite informed of the masses' needs and daily challenges. There seems to exist lately a norm among our leaders that there's no need to improve society, as such improvement will alter the status quo that personally rewards them at the expense of the masses. So they maintain a strong stand against change and redundancy of credibility. They justify their actions by insisting that they are equal victims of an already existing corrupt system, and restoring order denies them their own opportunity to benefit from the system. To them, the masses are expendable, insignificant, and irrelevant. They can deny it, but by no means are we fools. It is the prevailing endemic precept that motivates their presence and participation in the electoral process, and not inspiration to lift the masses. That explains why they guard their places and positions, misinform society as to their motives, and falsely secure their mandates. After many years of deception, I hope, siblings, that you are now wide awake to see the real fallacious nature of our leadership. True leadership is an acceptance of responsibility on behalf of the people. People's destinies are now in your hands. Infrastructure alone does not suffice. It is just a percentage or fraction of the whole ambit of leadership. And a comprehensive leadership addresses both the infrastructure and the human structure, as I choose to call it, or the human services. The madness and deception to impress the public eyes by erecting buildings unaccompanied by equal vigor and remediating directly the lives of the people is acutely flawed. While infrastructure development is essential to our state long neglected, leaders and government must understand and accept full responsibility of the health and overall well-being of our people. And to fulfill this social obligation, government needs resources. So government ought to operate as an economic empire, raising funds from direct investments in business, good progressive tax structure, and federal allocations. I am aware of some of our policies today that put undue burden on the payee citizen, And if I have my way, I will immediately terminate any policies that are financially burdensome on our poor and struggling population. I do not have to explain the infrastructural element of our government. Our leaders are quite familiar with the euphoric sentiment it evokes and capitalize on it for votes. The human structure is necessary to arrive at comprehensiveness of government and is urgent in our state. It is within government role to monitor and address any rising cost of living of our people and protect our people from abuse and exploitation by business. It is quite unfortunate that our nation as a whole has become a dumping ground for all kinds of goods, some injurious to our health, some overpriced for profiteering, some shipped to us simply because not very many nations will receive them because of compromised quality. I understand the market forces behind price of goods and services. I understand that government intervention is necessary to maintain affordability. And to achieve affordability, government good leaders should promote and protect public interests. High price of goods and services, coupled with high unemployment, have made life so miserable for our people. I understand the world of limited resources. I understand the risk of permanent dependency and the further risk of a socialist system that is contrary to democratic ideals of free enterprise. But in all honesty, government must assume the responsibility or role of reversing the epidemic of death, hunger, and all other social issues in our state. It must create social safety nets for our citizens to cushion hardship. It is very unfortunate that we are daily losing our loved ones through preventable accidents, illnesses, and poor health maintenance. And I do not see any sense of neither concern nor urgency on the part of Imo leadership. Longevity of our citizens is of paramount importance and a priority we must honor because it takes people to make up a state. The need to balance both infrastructure and human structure is urgent. We cannot live by infrastructure alone. The tax government has attempted to impose on those trying to dig boreholes on their lands is high-handed to me and uncalled for. Government should be more worried of its dereliction of duty, failing to provide clean, treatable water for the people. Not long ago, Owerri and other communities enjoyed government-delivered water, and again, it is so baffling to me that the same government has walked away from its social responsibility, ignoring the fact that borehole water contains pathogens that are not completely safe for human consumption. This is yet another failure to ensure the safety and well-being of our people. If government is eventually convinced that such services is beyond its capability, government should at least reach out to the international community, seeking the technology for individual families to further purify the water before consumption and not engage in oppressive taxes on our struggling families. I remember arguing with a friend over the right of our states to generate energy, given our federal government failure to sustain it for decades. My friend vehemently argued that it was a sole federal government prerogative, that states are constitutionally forbidden to engage in such exercises, while I argued that if a federal government failed, states had no choice but to assume responsibility. Weeks after our argument, the Lagos state government announced it was building a power plant, and I felt vindicated as well as justified such actions. Electricity is an essential basic service, and it's unfortunate that we are still struggling with it in 2014. Again, a state government need not wait for the federal government. Thanks to new science, the marketplace is now encumbered with energy alternatives. From wind, solar, wave, and bioenergy, nations are now generating energy even from insects. We have companies manufacturing big boxes of compressed cells capable of generating energy and are eco-friendly. I find it dangerous and troubling that we have only a few firefighting trucks for the whole Owerri zone. And to complicate matters, these hard-working men are poorly trained, under-equipped, and to summon the station, one has to have the cell phone number of the chief officer. Siblings, this is tragedy in the making. Every one of our citizens should live less than 10 minutes from a fire station. This is just how I conceive it. There are no there are no telecommunication radios, no heat repellent clothing, no manpower for personnel expected to fight fire across the Owerri zone with over 1 million people and industries handling sensitive inflammable materials. This is malfeasance of the highest order. We have a state congress if this problem escaped the state government attention. This is why people are sent to Congress to represent communities and articulate issues of public concern and public safety. I guess these men and women are busy trying to decide which traditional clothes to wear each day, that they're unaware that they and everyone else are so vulnerable to fire. And when it comes to land around the state, our government has not been fully honest. Land for most families is all that's left. And to watch government officials in the guise of development almost seize lands, manipulate villages, use against leaders, this is tantamount to robbery. I do not believe in the wholesome acquisition of land by government. Government should only acquire land when it has specific projects in the pipeline and pay the market value of these lands. That has not been the case, and we are yet to see this scam fully unravel. And when it does, I believe that many will face persecution. The issue of law and society is one our leaders must understand and revisit. Our state has long been renowned as a crime-ridden state, and while that image is slowly withering, we owe it to ourselves to educate the youth and accept the rule of law as the highest abiding principle that will shape our lives and determine our actions. Our long, almost traditional disregard for law and order is a serious bane to society, undermines our progress, and further erodes the social, cohesive bonds of affection that ought to bind our lives together as one people. In fact, our leaders unfortunately have become the biggest architects of this reckless abandonment of the rule of law, but instead consider it a badge of honor to violate the laws of the land. That must surely explain the increase in vices and other crimes in our state. When those who are constitutionally and morally obligated to protect and uphold the laws become their biggest violators, they essentially lose the moral grounds to articulate civility or other worthwhile values. Society becomes the victim, as average men and women see nothing good to emulate from our leaders. Consequently, citizens question their own conscience and join in an endless circle of lawlessness and dysfunctional attitude. Trust among us is lost, replaced by fear and paranoia. I have seen nations like Mexico and Colombia disintegrate into warfare, where even governors, police commissioners, attorney generals are assassinated on the streets every day. And while some might consider me as just an alarmist, leaders, your present safety nets, your bulletproof cars, your legions of security will not suffice to protect even the richest among you if we ignore the early looming signs of anarchy. If we keep paying lip service to corruption and mismanagement of public funds, no one, including the ardent criminal, is safe from the violence that we ignorantly encourage. It is in every leader's interest that we all retrace our steps and start this pursuit of wealth with the greatest respect for the rule of law. The lives we will save are our own lives and our loved ones. We are never going to attain a total corrupt-free society, but if we invest 90% of our resources towards addressing the myriad of economic problems consuming our people, we stand a greater chance of progress. Our leaders should seek to achieve a consensus as to reclaim our state from this treacherous road to the cliff. Revamping our broken judicial system, our law enforcement system, and all within their power, Imo State can, in fact, emerge as the oasis in the midst of a troubled nation and a beacon of light in this dark age of our history. Our gross domestic product reports and claims of the most business-friendly nations that have quick return on investment grossly conceal the pain, suffering, and hopelessness endemic in our lives. Our misfortune is reversible, And that I know if we have good leadership. If I have my way, I would ensure our state and her people enjoy their inalienable rights to the pursuit of freedom, financial security, and true happiness. I envision a state where our citizens' average lifespan is 680 years, where all citizens with life-threatening illness become the responsibility of the state, where from infancy until old age, preventive medicine is applied, and a universal standard of care available to all citizens. A state where industries adorn our highways and lowways and massive unemployment is reduced to less than 20%, where our people are presented with choices as to meaningful careers and wealth acquisition instead of the petty traders they have all become. And even if they choose to stay and engage in trading, government provides the resources for their business growth. Business expansion encourages spending and spending spurs opportunity. I envision a state where the very weak are protected from the strong and mighty, not out of their heart kindness and pity, but because the rule of law instills the fear. I envision a state where our youth receive real quality education from any schools and not from special privileged schools. I envision a state where farmers produce food in abundance and we do not have to hunger because of high cost of living, nor buy yam and other food products from out of our southern region. Is it not historically ironical that yam, a once local currency that served to measure the degree of wealth of our forefathers, could be in such short supply, extinct, that we have to depend on our northern farmers for their supply? This I will make every effort to reverse if I have my way. Today we have widowed women in thousands due to poverty, preventable accidents, and poor antiquated health delivery system, and men as well. I envision a day when we will be able to offer them our might and guide them towards financial independence through career training and financial aid. I envision a state where our schools are adequately funded no matter who determines their curriculum, be they the churches or associations. Our children are our growing assets, and we must nurture them with good environment until they grow. And another historical irony that is troubling that is a troubling condition is the fact that some of our children are still learning in unstable buildings handed to us from our colonial masters. If I have my way, these structures will give way for modern classrooms equipped with computers and other new age technology so as to bring their educations at par with advanced nations of the world. Siblings, enough of these self-inflicted wounds and ineptitude on the part of government. To build a viable and modern state is my mission. The air you breathe, the food you eat, the water you drink will pass the test of quality. Our streets and highways are not for trash, and they will be free of potholes on a daily basis. We cannot remain static for decades while nations evolve and revolutionize their lives with science and technology. Again, I caution you siblings to refrain from vain expectations, refuse to be beguiled, and seek men and women who will guarantee your future and your children's future, and not individuals who have little knowledge of free governance, who have nothing but name recognition, who cannot give true account of their stewardship to our state and nation. Men with questionable character. If you're looking for leaders who will maintain the status quo, I ask you to look past me. But if you are looking for a man who will challenge the status quo and fight for change, take a real look at me. I am overwhelmed with grief as I watch our young men turn into armed robbers, keke drivers, daily laborers, and girls turn into prostitutes and child-producing machines for sale and rituals because of government denial and lack of commitment to job creation. Fellow citizens, I think you've heard enough for now. Before us is a contest as to who has the vision and courage to navigate this sinking ship away from the shallow waters of despair and bring it into the shores of economic prosperity for everyone, not just for a few. Comprehensive governance leaves no problems unaddressed. Economic justice now, economic justice forever. Thank you, and may God Almighty be with you until we meet again. Thank you.